Hi there, my name is Chris, and I'm a late diagnosed neurodivergent person. Today's video is going to be about my childhood, and the reason I'm making this video is because I've basically been going back throughout my whole life, and it's been just a weird experience, sort of rethinking about everything from a neurodivergent point of view rather than a neurotypical point of view, which I have been doing for the past 34 years. And I guess after talking with my therapist and family members, the signs were probably always there, but I never knew. The people around me had no clue. Doctors, therapists, teachers, nothing really stood out. And so the reason I want to talk about my childhood from basically birth to about fifth grade, so about 11 years old, 10, 11 years old, is because I just want to share my story, for me, just to get it out, and because I like to ruminate about things and think about it, and it just is a crazy spiral. But then also, if there's anyone out there who is listening and they might, resonate with something that I've said, or may have shared a similar experience that I've gone through, or maybe oh, I remember when I felt like that when I was younger, because it can be really lonely. Like, it's super lonely, just being different. And so yeah. But anyway, my whole journey, and I always knew this about myself, but I never really made the connection until I was even thinking about neurodivergency, was that at 1 week old, and I talked to my mom about this recently, was I had a bunch of seizures. I think they were tonic-clonic seizures. I'm not 100% sure, but I had like 5 seizures at 1 week old. And so already, right out of the womb, my brain was just like, whoa, this is like way too much stuff is going on. And I guess I turned blue and I almost died. And so I was like, oh, well, if I, turned blue, was there any, lack of oxygen? Well, obviously there was a lack of oxygen. Was there any potential brain damage or anything? So even at 1 week old, my brain was like, this is way too much craziness is going on, like forgetting to breathe and everything like that. So I've been doing some research, and a lot of it, there's nothing that specifically states, like, there, to my knowledge right now anyway, there's nothing that like causation, right? It's all correlation, and correlation does not cause causation. But I guess those seizures at such a young age, there is a correlation between having seizures and potential neurodivergency, whether it's ADHD or autism or whatever. And I never knew that. And I don't think, I was born in 1990, so I don't even think neurodivergency, autism, ADHD, things like that were even as well known and as researched as they are now. So that's like 34 years ago. And so I think from the doctor's point of view and from my parents' point of view, I was having these seizures, and the goal was just to stabilize me and to make sure that I didn't die. And then once I was, breathing on my own, there wasn't any, noticeable deficits. That meant that things were okay. While even though my brain went through this kind of traumatic experience at 1 week old, that's not something that you can really see, right? Like, at 1 week old, you're not talking, you're just brand new into this world. And so, learning a little bit about that has, one, I wish I would have made the connection a little bit sooner, because I always knew that I had seizures and I turned blue and things like that, but I never connected it to neurodivergency. I thought, with being late diagnosed wasn't even on my mind. And because, I was otherwise okay, physically healthy growing up, there was nothing to suggest that, there was any lasting sort of issues or anything like that. But so yeah, I guess if you're someone who may have had seizures or epilepsy or anything like that growing up, I suggest just to do a little bit more research and kind of look it up on your own. I don't know if there's anything specific that says like, yes, this causes this or whatever, but there is a pretty good correlation between early childhood seizures and potential for being neurodivergent. Just because I think one of the kind of visuals that I read was like when you're obviously so young, your brain's still developing, and it's like your brain is just like a bunch of power lines, right? Just sending electrical currents all over the place. And a seizure is basically just like a big earthquake, right? Like all the power lines are kind of rattled and knocked down and stuff, and your brain is like, okay, well, we got to put these power lines back up, but we got to do it in a different way, right? Or you can think of it like a sinkhole or something. Like we can't put building roads. You can't build a road over a sinkhole. We're gonna have to like go around and form a new kind of connection. So there's a lot of kind of interesting, I think, studies and stuff out there. It's something that I'm still kind of learning about. So yeah, I guess if you had childhood seizures or epilepsy or anything like that, it's just something to look into. I'm not saying that it's definitely a cause or whatever, but it was just interesting to read about, and to me it made a lot more sense putting everything together. And I think as I've gone on this journey, when I look at things through a neurodivergent point of view, it's like, oh well, yeah, that makes complete sense. Like, why didn't I see that earlier? But just looking at some of my notes here. But another thing that was, I kind of knew that I was different early, like in first grade. And one of the first kind of moments where I got punished for being different was in first grade. And I remember it was in math class, or I guess you didn't have classes in first grade, but it was during math. You're learning your 1, 2, 3s, and I think we're going to like 1 to 20 in first grade. And we had this paper, and it was like, the questions were like, okay, you have like 1 through 20, and each 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way to 20 there was like a box, right? And it was like for each number, like draw one picture, right? So like for under 1 you would draw like 1 soccer ball. Under 2 you would draw like 2 baseballs, all the way to 20. Well, my big brain was like, this is like stupid. So what I did was I did 1 1, I did 2 2s, and I did 3 3. So I didn't really draw anything. I just wrote the number like four times. I wrote 17 times, because to me that was like, okay, well, I did it. Like I drew, I guess, the picture. Like I drew 17 17s. Like to me it made sense. But no, that was the wrong way to do it. And so I not necessarily got punished or anything for that. I had to do it, again. But it was like the first time where I was like, oh, I think about things differently, right? Like I'm trying to just get this stupid little paper done or whatever, this activity. And yeah, like that's just how my brain works. Like I'm just going to get this done as soon as possible, and I'm going to do it just in my own way. But it wasn't the quote unquote right way. It's not what the teachers were looking for. So that was just kind of, I don't know, an initial like thing where looking back, it's kind of funny because it's, I don't know. I think it's just clever. But in third grade, I was very good at multiplication. Like just we did like flashcards, and we always did like these competition type things where I forget what the game was called, like Around the World or something, where all the desks were spread out and you would go around, like one person would go around and the teacher would do multiplication cards. So like she would have all the cards and you wouldn't be able to see them, and then she would flip one over and it'd be like 3 times 8, and then whoever said 24 first, moved on to the next desk. And I was so good at it. Like I was the best in the whole class when it came to anything like multiplication and math, like and stuff like that. Like I was just, I don't know, like a little calculator. I don't know if that has anything to do with neurodivergency. I'm just kind of sharing it, just kind of being with math. Like I was just so good at doing those calculations in my head, and I still am kind of today. Like my wife will ask me some questions about like, oh, what should we do, leave for the tip, or I don't know, anything really math related, and I'm able to kind of visualize it a little bit more better in my head, and I'm able to kind of solve those problems pretty quickly. Another thing that I knew that I was different, and it's not so much neurodivergent wise, but because I had seizures at such a young age, my mom made me wear like a medical bracelet, and it had the fact that I had epilepsy and I had like some allergies, which that's a whole nother story. And so I knew sort of like in the 4th grade, kind of like, why am I wearing this thing when I had classmates who had obvious physical, intellectual disabilities, and they never wore anything like that. And I don't think it has anything to do with neurodivergency, but it was just another thing where I felt different. Like, why am I wearing this? I don't know. It doesn't really have anything to do with neurodivergency, but it's just another thing that it was just like, okay, I am different than everyone else. Like, I wish I was just normal. And I think that's kind of like a common thread as I talk about my life. It's just another thing where it's like, man, I just wish I was normal or neurotypical. But I didn't know those terms back then. But I think a huge one was in 5th grade, and it's kind of stupid looking back, but in 5th grade, our teacher had something called the book. Like it was just magical book thing, I don't know. And it always sat in the middle of the classroom, and it was on this like table or whatever, and it was always just kind of there, like watching, right? And anytime you didn't turn in your homework, or anytime you didn't follow directions, or you misbehaved or whatever, you would have to write in the book. And it was kind of embarrassing because you'd have to obviously get up and you do it, and the whole class would see you, write on it because it was in the middle of the room. And even at such a young age, I felt so much pressure to not write in that book. I recently just had a conversation with my mom, and one of the things that she said was, and it was kind of one of those things where I was able to finally connect the dots. And she said, grades, like her goal as a parent was grades never mattered, which is a lie, and I'll talk about that in a separate video. But what mattered to her the most was my behaviors are right, and making sure that I followed directions, because she wanted me to be able to get a job, follow my boss's orders, just kind of fit in and do what was expected of me. And so I felt so much pressure to always behave, to always do what was right, because if I did a bad behavior, then that made me a bad person. And there was always punishments, right? Like I would get grounded, or, you know, the classic, I'm disappointed in you, or you should have known better. Just like really those things that your parents say that really cut to the core. Like it's always worse to hear that your parents are disappointed in you. And so even at like that early age, I felt so much pressure to be the best academically in school, and the best person behavior wise. Like if there was a substitute teacher, I had to be on my best behavior no matter what. If I had friends over, or if I was at a friend's house, I couldn't like goof around and be myself. I had to make sure that I, you know, didn't get into trouble, right? And so even at that early age, I think that's when I really started to mask, because I was, and the hard part is that I don't specifically remember, like I'm officially diagnosed with ADHD, but I don't remember me, you know, tapping my pen or kind of having those kind of stereotypical traits of ADHD, right? Like I just don't remember ever really doing that. And so it's kind of hard to think and look back and be like, okay, what was my personality like when I was that young? You know, was I masking? Was I just so afraid to get into trouble? Like, who was I? Who was I? Who is not even a sentence, but anyway, it was just kind of hard to. I just was under so much pressure on myself. I put so much pressure on myself to be this perfect little obedient student, and looking back, it's just like, oh my God, you know, like I taught in schools, and kids made mistakes all the time. No one's perfect. Like I was never, even as a teacher, like everything is a teaching opportunity. Like if someone is messing around and whatever, like it doesn't necessarily make them a bad kid. It's just like, let's teach them like how to make better choices, or how to, if you struggle in math, it doesn't mean that you're a terrible student. It's just like, okay, let's work on this, and let's figure out, like, no one's good at everything. But even at that young age, like I just felt so much pressure to mask, to be this idealized student who never got into trouble, who always had good grades. And I remember like that's when the anxiety started kicking in, because we had like these desks where it was like a regular desk, but then underneath your chair there was kind of like this I don't know, a little thing where it had like some steel bars or whatever, and you can put like books and stuff in there. And I remember in 5th grade, at the great age of 10, I was so afraid that like I put my homework and stuff, like my papers, on the bottom. I was so afraid that there would be like a gust of wind, or my papers would somehow magically fall onto the ground, and the janitor would pick them up and throw them away, and then I would get into trouble. Like, what 10-year-old thinks it like that? You know, like, because I was so afraid that it would make me look like a bad student. It would get me in trouble because I was not perfect. And so, yeah, like 5th grade is definitely when I really started to mask and to be this idealized student, this idealized, obedient kid who just got along with everyone, never really spoke what he really thought. And yeah, it's just kind of sad looking back. Like, yeah, it's just like, geez Louise, no wonder, like, it's just, it makes sense now looking back from a neurodivergent point of view. But, yeah, it's just, I don't know. But when it came to things like academics, I was always pretty good. I never really had any big struggles in school with academics. And it's hard to say with friendships, because I basically got along with everyone. But I don't know if that was the real me or if it was me masking at such a young age, because I think I mentioned it in my first video, like I'm very good at masking. I've been doing it, I guess, since fifth grade for the past 24 years, so I'm a little bit of an expert. But so it's hard to remember really if there were any situations where I wasn't quite sure of the social cues and things like that. I think it was just me masking, trying to be friends with everyone, always being agreeable, always being nice, always being, like I said earlier, there's this idealized kid who was just a perfect little obedient student and kid. And so, yeah, it's kind of hard to remember everything that happened in that period of time, but yeah, I'm sure I'll end the video and remember something. It's just kind of weird when you're thinking about things from a neurodivergent point of view. I feel like I learn something new about myself every day. But yeah, I think that basically kind of wraps up my childhood from birth to fifth grade. And so basically it was just kind of just that beginning of the masking process. When looking back now in my middle school years, and I'll talk about this in my next video, I'll do middle school to high school, but if middle school takes too long, I will just stick with middle school, because that's when you obviously go through puberty. And as my mom said, my sixth grade year was my worst year, whatever that means. It was just me unmasking and getting into trouble. But I'll either make it one or two videos, because sixth grade and middle school is definitely when things started to change. And looking back now, that's when the neurodivergent sort of traits really started to show up and pop up, with the masking and things like that, loss of friendships, unsure how to navigate certain social things, especially as you get older and you're more exposed to more adult type things. How do I navigate these things while also trying to be this obedient student and idealized person? So I might break it down into middle school and into high school, but it just kind of depends on kind of how long the video is. But anyway, I hope that if you've made it this far, there's maybe something you've taken away. I think one of the reasons why I make these videos is because it is lonely. Like, it's lonely being a late diagnosed neurodivergent person. And I just feel like I learn something new every day. And like I said in my first video, I hope that if someone comes across this video and they're a little bit younger than me and they're able to put some things together, if they've been struggling like the way I have, and they're able to, if you're able to, find out that you might be neurodivergent or whatever, that's my goal, because it sucks. It's been hard. And yeah, but anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.